What's up, everybody? This is Chad Wick from the Mini Bike Builders Guild. I think there's a lot of need for this video. This is going to be a video for beginners, new guys, noobs, whatever you want to call them. And we're going to go through some of the questions that they always seem to ask, the same questions, because they really don't know anything about it yet. I personally can't stand seeing people hate on new guys because I was in the same boat about 5 years ago. So in my group, I really try to maintain no trash talk. Either help or get out of the way. You know what I mean? So there's a strong need for this video. The biggest question I think we get asked in the group or any group of mini bikes is, how do I make my engine go faster? Well, let's go over it. 1, do the governor delete. Don't try to tie nothing together all day. Just get rid of the governor. You're going to need a side cover gasket. You can get it from Amazon, anywhere. What I do, I pull the side cover off, then I'll knock the governor gear out through the back of the engine. I use a nail set and a hammer and tap it all out. That way you don't have to beat on trying to break the gear and do all this messy crap. You just pop that sucker out and plug it with about a, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1/4 inch diameter bolt. I just use an impact and it plugs it up perfectly. You should at least have an impact driver in your tool arsenal. Do not forget that little washer inside. You make sure that everything has been removed. If you don't remove that washer, you can kiss your engine goodbye. I think the next biggest thing that you can do to your engine for speed is the valve springs. Valve springs are cheap. I use 26 pounders. You don't need a special tool to put them in. I could just use my thumbs and push it in there and it's good to go. With 26s, you don't really need the fancy aluminum retainers or anything like that. The stock metal ones are easier to put in. The next mod, I would say, is some Champion rockers. If you're already got the valve cover off and you're doing the springs, you should get yourself a set of those. I think it's $25 maybe for the Champion rockers. Everything I'm going to go over in this video is going to be on the non-Hemi Predator. The Hemi Predator is just more difficult to work on. Finding parts is much more difficult for a Hemi Predator. And the third thing, which is kind of pricey, but there are lower cost options, like from Amazon. They have a cast aluminum flywheel, which I have one engine with it. The acceleration is fast, but there's not much weight to that flywheel, so it slows down fast as well. It gives it a jerky feeling, you know what I mean? To where a heavier weight flywheel, like an arc billet aluminum flywheel, is going to swing a little easier. Well, not easier, it's going to have a little more weight to it, going to keep the engine going smoother instead of being such a drastic change in RPM. Another big question, number 2, how fast will a stock 212 go? Well, from my experience, I had mine on a Megamoto 80, I think it was. It was a stock 212, and I think I got about 38 miles an hour on it. My wife, I think she pulled 42, but she's a fraction of my weight. So I'd have to say between 35 and 45 miles an hour. The gas tank on a stock 212 is hugely restrictive. So I have to recommend to anyone, if you're going to do an engine, anything to try to make it faster, go through the first question, do your governor delete, and second, get rid of that gas tank, get yourself a little gas tank off of Amazon or whatever, plastic, metal, doesn't even matter, and use that to feed fuel. I would also get yourself one of those $35 PWK carbs. I like the PWK style because it adds that power jet at the top and you'll get more power, more top RPMs with that kind of carb. And you can pick them up for about $35. If you're not completely building the engine, then I would start with like 24 millimeter. That should keep you right in the sweet spot with the tuning. You'll probably have to tune your air screw just a little bit. It may be the needle, who knows? Depends on what your engine needs. Another big question, number 3. Where do you guys get your parts from? I'm going to go over some of the big ones. Big ones are OMB Warehouse, Go Power Sports. Amazon is a big one. And you should be able to find a lot of things that you need. When you start getting into more power, more specific things for your engine, you need to go to either Go Power Sports or OMB Warehouse. Also, another thing I'm going to go over is the power of Google. If you're a beginner, you could actually type in, how do I make my mini bike go faster? And boom, many things will come up. rather than go into a group with a bunch of hardened veterans in there and ask these day one questions. You can answer your own questions with Google, or you watch this video. Another big question that we get is, where do I get a frame? Okay, well, there's quite a few places. You can either buy a Coleman and take your chances with that, or you can buy a real frame from someone like RCF Mini Bikes or RPC or Landon over at LCR. These are all acronyms for mini bike frame manufacturers. Me, North Mini Bikes, I don't mass produce them. I will hand make you one if you want. I don't do a bunch of them because my time ain't cheap. But my bikes are the baddest mug cuckas around. Ask anybody. But anyways, let's see. I'm going to go over some channel recommendations. You can just watch a handful of videos from these guys and be at stage 1 mini bike guy. I think for beginners figuring out how to do things, Redbeard's Garage is a great channel to watch. He's really in depth. He goes over all kinds of different things, different engine builds, different parts, gas, alcohol. He goes over a lot of stuff. And the other channel I'm going to recommend is Black 66. He does a lot of comparison videos. What will be faster, this or this? And then he gives you actual data from him, 0 to 30, 0 to 60 times, and then how that changes. And he, like an engineer, he writes it all down and goes over every stat with you, which is really informative. I love that guy's videos. And there's a handful of other videos. Again, you can just type in mini bike and all kinds of stuff pops up. So again, don't forget the power of Google and the power of YouTube. College these days is watch a video on YouTube and write a paper about it. There's 90% of your college right there. So now I'm just going to kind of go over a bike and go over the lessons that I've learned from building bikes, and hopefully it helps you out. All right, so we'll use this bike as a guinea pig today. We'll start from the front and go to the back. This is how I mount my brake calipers. I get a caliper off Amazon, I measure the length, and I get as close as I can get with the hose length. So I just kind of weld the mount to collar. This is 1.25 inch, I believe, collar. And it's just welded to the thing right there. As long as you have this nice and tight, you don't have any problems. But with this style right here of caliper, I really do not like this style. The pad just sits in there and is surrounded by this thing. So if that pad comes out or gets worn out, it'll chuck that frickin' pad out of there and almost kill you. So I will never buy that style. So take a good look at it. They sell these on Amazon. Do not buy that style of caliper. These are the Go Power Sports. Everybody calls them the front forks. I use them on all my bikes because if you've ridden a bike without suspension in the front, you will definitely want it. The risers. I like these risers, the taller ones, because they're heavier duty and you can get them tight. I mean, look what it did to the paint. You know what I mean? It's clamped on there. The other ones, the cheap ones, these little ones here, let me go over here. These ones suck. Cast aluminum. If you over tighten them, they will break right down the middle. These are the gas tanks I like to use. It's just easy. I wouldn't do it this way with the hose clamps again. One, you had to print this out so that it wouldn't screw up the tank. When you buy these tanks, they come with a metal mounting system right here. Okay, and I just weld that to the frame now. It's much easier than this. With this one, these seem to break right here. Then I gotta go home. These are 1.5 gallons. I get them off of Amazon for $100. This front wheel is a Go Power Sports aluminum wheel. It's a 10-inch diameter. These are my ram mounts for my camera poles and stuff. The seat I had made by Emco, but I don't think he's doing it anymore. The seat is one of the more expensive parts of the bike, and the engine, of course. So this is a Tillotson 225 RS. This is a genuine Mikuni TM24. And for this engine, which is basically 265 cam, 26-pound springs, aluminum flywheel, a forged rod and piston, this is a bolt-on, perfectly tuned carb. They're about $130, but it's worth every cent. If you don't want to sit there and screw around with your carb all day and get covered in gas, buy a real Mikuni. Their idle is rock solid, and that's why I keep buying them. My bikes, I like to put a pump on there in case you need it. But with a TM carburetor, you need to take note to this. You cannot use a pulse pump with a TM carburetor. They're designed to suck the fuel in on its own. They have different jets and floats and stuff if you want to use a pulse pump, but you really don't need it. One thing I am going to do to this carb is put the power jet kit in there, because it's just not getting all the RPM out of this as you can with a PWK, because that shoots in a bunch more fuel at the top end. What else? Neck. I use 5/8 inch grade 8 bolt, goes all the way through. I use bearings and a spacer inside so you can tighten it up, because if you don't, like if you have a POS GT's frame like this, it's just a bolt through a piece of metal, and that's just trash. Get yourself a real bike, you know what I mean? If a frame is just a bolt, you might want to pass on it. Because if they couldn't actually figure out how to put bearings in there for you to actually have a good riding bike, they probably didn't do too much thinking on the rest of the frame. I'm just saying. So here is another one of those brake calipers. I really haven't had a problem with this one yet, but I'm sure if that thing gets worn down or the brake pad gets worn down, it's going to pop out just like the front one did. So this is called a live axle. And that is because when the chain turns it, it turns the entire axle and wheel and everything. So the axle is live, and instead of just turning the wheel. Like this GT's bike is just a bolt. You know what I mean? So it only turns the wheel. The wheel has bearings in the middle, and that's how the 5-inch guys like to run it. 5-inch meaning that's a 5-inch wheel. Most of the hood races are done 5-inch or 6-inch, or stock bore and big bore. Small block, big block, etc. Depending on how many people you have. All right, another big thing to go over is the chain. I use torque converters. I just like the way they feel better versus just straight clutch, because I'm 250 pounds, and regular clutch, geez, it takes me half a day to get up to speed. It's just, I don't like it. So this one, hell, it'll damn near lift the front end off the ground. It's pretty awesome. I usually put the green spring in there to try to get some more top end out of it. I'm not going to run 420 chain anymore. You just don't need it. And when you have a 420 chain, your adjustment range is garbage. I'm maxed out right here, and I don't have enough slack to take a link or even put a half link in. When you run a smaller diameter chain, like a 35, which is what I recommend, I also recommend buying high tensile 35 chain so that you don't stretch as much. You're not going to break that chain unless you're running like a Billet Hemi 400 something cc and a 4, 5, 6 disc bully clutch. Then yeah, you might break a 35 chain, but most of the time you're not gonna. So with a smaller chain, you get way more adjustment. You know what I mean? It's just easier to adjust the chain to be perfect rather than a 420 chain. I think a lot of guys run the 420 just for basically junk measurement. You know what I mean? But you don't need it. I've done that on the last few, but like this one is a 35 chain, and it's just, see how much better adjusted it is? It's just way better. On my carts, I run a 219 chain on here, which is even smaller than that, because the adjustment potential you can get perfect. What else? Another big thing. Everybody asks, oh, the wheels, where you get the wheels? Oh, BMI carts. That's where I get the wheels. That's another good place to get stuff. The wheels I use will all have what they call a 4x4 bolt pattern, which is it's 4 bolts, 4-inch square. So 4x4 bolt pattern. You can get this hub, which is a 1-inch keyed axle, live axle hub, just about anywhere, and I think it's 25 bucks, something like that. And that's what I use to drive my bikes, is a 4x4 hub. Another thing that I do to this Juggernaut driver is I put the Go Power Sports Stage 2 weights in there. That way you can get a good idle and you're not wearing anything out. Also, you need to shim out that driver to be perfectly straight with the driven and drive pulley. They need to be exactly straight or you're going to be eating belts like crazy. And really, that's about it. If you can get that far, you should be able to figure everything else out. Well, I hope this video helps you out. You know, it's just going over the basic stuff so that you don't get eaten up on the groups by asking new guy questions. Thanks for watching.